All right, shalom. First, I'd like to start by saying all praise to Yahweh Shema Shai, double honor to the elders and apostles that rule well, and salutations to the brothers of sincerity. Now, I'm going to start off with this scripture. This is Revelations chapter 2, verse 10. It says, "Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and you shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life." Right, so being tried is we might be tortured. Some brothers gonna be put to death. Some brothers not gonna have a meal for a day, maybe even longer. Shit like that. That's being tried, man. But the apostles had to go through it. The prophets had to go through it. I'm gonna get some more scriptures on it, but I'm gonna bring this video out first.
Donald Trump is apparently considering reopening the CIA's black sites that were the location of much of the torture.
Because you gotta remember, man, everything that we're going through is in the scriptures. So, and, Esau is bringing it out into this reality. That's how we know that the Bible is real, and that's just it.
That took place during the War on Terror under President Bush. Now, we knew that he had a very favorable opinion of torture, but the CIA black sites are so stereotypically, cinematically bad things that I did not think he would be willing to go this far, but we're going to show you what's in that draft executive order. It says that high-level Trump administration officials should conduct several reviews and make recommendations to Mr. Trump. One was a recommendation on this: whether to reinitiate a program of interrogation of high-value alien terrorists to be operated outside the United States by the CIA. And, I mean, how could you even write that sentence? Like, okay, so you think that there's high-value aliens that should be interrogated, but to specifically say, but let's not do it in America. Let's definitely do it overseas where fewer people will be able to.
That's the thing. This is already being done in America and overseas. That's what the concentration camps are for. Esau has all types of machines that they gonna use to break people's body up, rip people's bodies in half, all types of shit, man. And that's part of the grievous deaths that Yahweh Shema was talking about up in Jeremiah. This is this is Jeremiah chapter 15. I'm gonna start at verse. I start at verse 1. It says, "Then said the Lord unto me, though Moses and Samuel stood before me, yet my mind cannot be toward this people." Right? Moses represented the law, Samuel represented the prophets. "Cast them out of my sight," right, "and let them go forth," right? "And it shall come to pass, if they say unto thee, whither shall we go forth? Then thou shalt tell them, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, such as for death to death, and such as for the sword to the sword, and such as are for the famine to the famine, and such as are for the captivity to the captivity. And I will appoint over them 4 kinds, saith the Lord Yahweh: the sword to slay, the dogs to tear, and the fowls of heaven and the beasts of earth to devour and destroy." Right, so like this one, the scripture I was looking for. But that's how Israel gonna be dying, man. The Lord gonna appoint over them they deaths. And that's what happened during this history right here in Jeremiah, man. Let me see.
To see it.
And less laws will apply.
U.S.
laws won't apply when we torture them, do cruel and unusual punishment, and violate the Constitution.
Which is interesting and fits in with this. So, Mr. Trump's order says
the U.S. has no constitution, especially when martial law get enacted. The Constitution been done away with. But they got to keep everything in that realm of stupidity with these Edomites. And really, only people that don't know is those that don't watch. So
no detainee should be tortured or otherwise subjected to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment as prescribed by U.S. law, but it makes no mention of international law commitments binding the United States to adhere to humane standards. And first of all, we already know what he thinks qualifies as torture, and we'll get into that. But also, that means then that the U.S. law could just be changed, and then we could do whatever we want. Let's not worry about all those international laws that have kept the world in a relatively stable place for something like 7 decades.
I mean, you mentioned this is theater, right? And Trump often says, look, I'm putting on a show. Yeah. And so if this is a show for his base, well played, his vicious base, the half of his voters who are the deplorables, the only thing Hillary Clinton got right in the whole campaign, will love it. They're like, yes, we get to torture the brown people again. Yes, 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 right? And then they'll say, whoa, what do you mean? Don't call me vicious. How dare you?
I'm a Christian.
How could you call me deplorable? I just like torturing people.
Yeah.
And by the way, torture, as we've explained 1,000 times, based on evidence, it does get you something. It doesn't get you the truth. It gets you whatever that particular torturer wants to hear. Yeah. Right? And one of the things that...
Right, and they do got studies on that. People just, like he said, people just say anything just for the torturing to stop. This is Jeremiah chapter 16, verse... All right, I'm going to start at verse 16 and 1. It says, the word of the Lord Yahweh came unto me, saying, thou shalt not take thee a wife, neither shalt thou have sons or daughters in this place. For thus saith the Lord Yahweh, concerning the sons and concerning the daughters that are born in this place, and concerning their mothers that bear them, and concerning their fathers that begat them in this land, they shall die of grievous deaths. Like I said, they're gonna have all types of torture machines. They, Esau, they're only gonna have their media go into just a couple of things, but they're gonna have machines that actually rip your body in half, man. It says they shall not be lamented, neither shall they be buried. And Mexico experienced that. But they shall be as dung upon the face of the earth. Right, so you gotta think, man. With Trump putting up this side note, with Trump putting up this whole border thing, persecuting the Mexicans, even though that's supposedly supposed to be part of the USA, and him locking them in there and shit. Imagine how they feel with all the cartel violence going on and all the insurrections and shit going on over there in they country, and the ones that don't want to be there trying to escape, man. You got it's a lot of shit, going down. A lot of shit finna, turn up times 1,000. Why? Because it's biblical prophecy. But it says, but they shall be as dung upon the face of the earth, right? And they shall be consumed by the sword and by famine, and their carcasses shall be meat for the fowls of heaven and for the beasts of the earth. Right. So it's gonna be a lot going on during that time, man. It said, for thus saith the Lord Yahweh, enter not into the house of mourning, neither go to lament nor bemoan them. For I have taken away my peace from this people, said the Lord Yahweh, even loving kindness and mercies. Right. So since all this happening because the Lord doesn't deal with them, the Lord has a 1/3 and a 2/3. So shit, it ain't gonna be no crime for these people in that day, man. And these scriptures were meant to make us stronger, for the times to come.
That Cheney accomplished with torture back in the day was people would falsely say that Iraq was involved with 9/11, which were all disproven later. Yeah. But at the time, he wanted to invade Iraq, and the torturer gets what he wants, but he doesn't get the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So, but in terms of theater for the rest of the country, he's misjudging it. Yes, half of your voters are deplorable. That means 75% of the country isn't, including half of your voters. And a mom sitting in Kansas doesn't think like, yes, they reopened the dungeons. She's a little uncomfortable with it. And I think she's going to grow a lot more uncomfortable with it as time goes on.
This quote that we're going to read for you is exactly what those deplorables want to hear. Mr. Trump vowed during the campaign to bring back waterboarding and, quote, a hell of a lot worse not only because, quote, torture works, but because even if it doesn't work, they deserve it anyway.
Wow.
And that, I mean, look, Bush defended torture a million times, but he always said it was to get the information. Even Cheney would probably do that. But the voter out there, the deplorable, doesn't actually care about that. He just wants them to feel pain. And Trump perfectly summarized that right there.
Now, so John read to you earlier that theoretically it says we won't do cruel and inhuman treatment.
Yeah.
But Trump has told you his interpretation of what's legal is something that is cruel and inhuman, waterboarding, and a hell of a lot worse. And he doesn't care that it doesn't work. He just wants to do it for vengeance sake.
I know you might say, well, that was a long time ago. Maybe he's changed his view. Well, why don't we go to this next video and see if that's the case.
You told me during one of the debates that you would bring back waterboarding and a hell of a lot worse.
I want to keep our country safe. I want to keep our country safe.
What does that
mean? When they're chopping off the heads of our people and other people, when they're chopping off the heads of people because they happen to be a Christian in the Middle East, when ISIS is doing things that nobody has ever heard of since medieval times, would I feel strongly about waterboarding? As far as I'm concerned, we have to fight fire with fire. I have spoken as recently as 24 hours ago with people at the highest level of intelligence, and I asked them the question.
During one of the debates that you would bring back waterboarding and a hell of a lot worse.
I want to keep our country safe. I want to keep our country safe.
What does that mean?
When they're chopping off the heads of our people and other people, when they're chopping off the heads of people because they happen to be a Christian in the Middle East, when ISIS is doing things that nobody has ever heard of since medieval times, would I feel strongly about waterboarding? As far as I'm concerned, we have to fight fire with fire. I have spoken as recently as 24 hours ago with people at the highest level of intelligence, and I asked them the question, does it work? Does torture work? And the answer was yes, absolutely. I will rely on Pompeo and Mattis and my group. And if they don't want to do, that's fine. If they do want to do, then I will work toward that end. I want to do everything within the bounds of what you're allowed to do legally. But do I feel it works? Absolutely, I feel it works.
So really fast. I don't believe that they told him that, and we can't. That this is a terrible position to be in because it makes us seem partisan. We cannot trust. We already know that he's, in terms of the briefings that were given about the Russia stuff, he would come out and say that he'd been told one thing, and then it would be directly contradicted by people in the meeting the next day. He simply lies. Also, he didn't say they said enhanced interrogation works. He said they said torture works, and so he's for it. He can't even remember the term he believes he's allowed to use. He literally just said torture there is okay.
Torture, by the way, is illegal under American law, let alone international law. It's torture, for Christ's sake. We're having a conversation about this. Of course it's illegal. So, I mean, if you did it to dogs, you'd get a prison sentence. That's Michael Vick, right?
Yeah.
If you did it to small animals, you'd get a prison. If you do it to humans, even if you think they're terrorists, by the way, a lot of these people are never even charged. And by the way, oops, it turns out in Guantanamo Bay, we had hundreds of people who we later decided were innocent, that they had been turned in for the $5,000 bounty and they hadn't done anything.
Yeah.
So, but they never got tried, but they got tortured anyway. Now he's saying, oh, yeah. By the way, Pompeo and Mattis, be careful the advice you give him.
Yeah.
Because he just said he's going to throw you under the bus. Later, he's going to say, well, I didn't.
They said it's allowable.
Pompeo and Mattis told me I should do it. It was their decision, not mine. I told you right on tape.
And also the sick ethics of, well, if they do something, then we get to fight fire with fire. If they're immoral, we get to be immoral. First of all, if they're chopping off the heads of Christians, they do chop off the heads of Christians, in some cases because they're Christians. They also chop off about 10 times as many heads of Muslims, specifically because they're Muslims, but not in the way that they want them to be. I love that you can't even acknowledge the fact that most of the victims by far are Muslims. But again, that if they do it, we get to do it. This is the Christian president. This is the people who, driven by this Bible, the inerring word of God, well, they were fucked up, so we get to be as fucked up as we want, which also then justifies what they're doing, because we're showing that it's apparently fine. If you think you need to do this to protect your country, we agree with you.
So, finally, I think that's the thing to emphasize. He says we haven't seen anything